Mindy from My Creative Scoop, and I'm back with another tutorial for Sunny Studio Stamps. Today I'm going to be sharing with you some Copic coloring using this brand new stamp set called See You Soon. I'm also pairing it up with the Radiant Plumera stamp set. I'm going to be using the Sentiment, and we're also using the coral on the tropical scenes. They're cute little backgrounds that you can create with your for your cards. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so periodically I will work with my Tim Holtz alcohol inks and come up with different style backgrounds using different colors, and then I just let them dry, stick them in an envelope, and save them for times like this when I want to make a card and I'm looking for a particular background. Maybe I can't find anything, and I'll do the same thing with my Distress Oxide inks, just come up with different patterns or color combinations, and again stick them aside so that way I have something to work with. So we're going to be using the semi stitch circles, and I've cut out 2 from my card front, which we're going to be making a slimline card. So what we're going to do, since this piece isn't going to cover the whole back part of here, I've cut it in half, and we're going to adhere it to this piece of cardstock up here in this corner. Actually, it's going to go like this, up here in this corner, and then this one down here. Okay, so we have it all glued down. We're going to just set it aside so we can dry. And before we attach this using some foam tape to this piece of the card front, so it goes like this, so that way it has a little bit of height, we want to go ahead and stamp our sentiment first. Okay, so I've stamped my sentiment. I'm using the Radiant Plumera stamp set. It says the Happy Summer, and then I'm using the See You Soon stamp set, See You Soon, to put right underneath. So it says Happy Summer, See You Soon. So now it's time to do some coloring so that way we can decorate our card with all of these cute little sea creatures from the See You Soon stamp set. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to color is this cute little shark. So we're going to be using N5, N1, N0, and N3. We're going to color underneath the shark a little bit lighter than the back part. So we're going to start with the N3 and just give it a little bit of a shadow. So right underneath his mouth. And then on the side here, just coming out a little bit and going all the way down to where this little point is. Then we're going to come back up the other side of the point, but we're not going to go up as far since that part is curled, so we want to add the shadow there. We're also going to add a little bit of a shadow just right around his mouth and up here underneath his eye. So we're going to come out a little bit more using our N1. So I'm just going to give a little flick coming out a little bit farther than where we came out with that N3, because we want this to be a little bit lighter, so we don't want to go too thick, but we do want to make sure we have that shadow. And then with the N0, we want to get a nice blend right along the edge of that N1. And after we get that nice blend between the 2 colors, then we'll go ahead and just do one swipe over, filling in all of that white space on the bottom of the shark. And the same thing here, we're going to go ahead and do one swipe over, filling in all the white. So now we're going to take the N5 and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to add the shadows to the back part. So we're going to go underneath the tail, and then underneath this part of the tail, right here, where, because his body is turning, underneath his little fin, and that little fin. And over here, since that one's on the other side of him. And then again, a little bit underneath the eye and where his body's kind of curving, and on the top part. And now we're going to come out a little bit more with the N3. So since we want this part of the shark to be a little bit darker, we're going to eliminate the last color, so the N0. So with the N1, we're going to go ahead and fill in the rest of his body. So we want that shadow to be right around his fin here, but we want to make sure we add a little bit of a shadow. So we want to come up about halfway using the N3, but you could still tell the difference between, so it's just not completely shadowed all in this area. We didn't use the N5 right in there. I'm going to come out just a little more with my N3 right here. Oh, and I forgot his tail. Come out a little bit more here and here. And now with the N1, we want to make sure we get a nice blend right along the edge of the N3, and once it's nice and blended, we can fill in the rest of the white space. So since that we went a little bit darker, see how it's starting to pull away right there? Because I took this lighter color and went too much into that N3. So I'm going to show you how to fix that. You want to always go back with your middle color. In this case, it's going to be the N3 since we used the N5 too with this color combination. So you're going to do a heavy flick right directly over that line. And it pulls that through and erases that little perimeter that we created. So I'm going to go back with my N1 again and just do another coat right around the area where we filled it in white. So notice I'm not going back into that N3 area so I don't start to have that color pulling. Alright, so now let's go ahead and take the N5 again. We're going to color all in his mouth. We want it to make it look like it's dark in there. If you accidentally covered up some of the teeth, you can always go back with a white gel pen and re-add them. Okay, so moving right along, now we're going to go ahead and color the cute little octopus. So I want to use really bright summery colors, and I want to show you how to shadow using them, because sometimes it's a little difficult to get a really nice deep shadow when you're using real bright neon-y colors. So we're going to take N3, and I'm just going to shadow in the areas where there's normally going to be shadows. So right along the bottom of his legs, we want to come just add a little bit of a shadow. Also coming up the sides of the head just a little bit. We just want to make sure that it's round. So it's a little thicker here, and then it's going to taper off and as you get towards the top. Same thing on this side. So now we're going to color him BG07, BG05, and BG02. Now we're going to go back to these shadowed areas, but we're almost just going to ignore the fact that they're there. And I wanted to add them, the gray area, down first, so that way I am covering up the BG07. If I were to if I would have done the BG07 first and then went back and put the gray over the BG07, it dulls it down a little bit. So by doing it this way, you're just adding that shadow there, but we're still keeping that, it makes it a little bit brighter, because we're not adding as much of that gray down. So I'm just going directly over those shadowed areas. And this is also a great tip if you don't have very many colors. Getting N3 or a set of the grays, and you don't have to buy every single one of them. You can always just get, you know, all of the odds, all of the even. But having a good set of the grays, and you're limited with your colors, could really give you more choices in getting that deeper shadow and blend when you're coloring. So now with BG05, we're going to come out a little bit more. I know there's not a whole lot of room on the legs to leave white, but you want to try to leave a little bit of a white space, so that way we get that nice highlight with the BG02. And then BG02, we're going to go ahead and go right along the edge of that BG05, go back and forth a little bit to make sure it's nice and blended. And then you can go ahead and just fill in these little legs. And then fill in the rest of the white area. So now I'm going to go back and we're going to repeat that. So I'm going to take my BG07, go back and add some color where we first added the shadows. Sometimes when you're coloring you can get a little blotchy, or like how we did over there, and we have to go back over it because it wasn't blending out good. But sometimes too, when you're using some darker colors and you end up going back a little bit more with each lighter color, it has a tendency to really lighten up those shadows. So we're just going back and repeating. So now I'm going to take my BG05 and I'm going to do a little flick. And then again with my BG02, just a couple little flicks right around the edge. All right, so moving along, I want to show you how to color, and we're going to do another octopus, but with a different color combination. So this time we're going to use a pink. So the same thing, I'm going to take my N3 and add a little bit of a shadow. And we're going to be using RV19, RV17, and RV14. So I'm starting with my RV19. I'm just going to go directly over those shadowed areas that we used the N3 on. And then with the RV17, we're going to do the exact same thing. Come out a little bit more. These colors are very similar though. Oh, let's get the top part. And then RV14. So right along the edge of that RV17. Go back and forth a couple of times because the color does change a little bit. So even though we're still putting the shadows and everything in its different spot, I know coloring with these bold, bright colors, especially pinks and reds, they can get a little intimidating. So I'm going to go back and repeat. So RV19. And then the 17. This time I'm going to do a heavy flick going into that RV14. So that way I don't come up with that line, since there is such a difference between the two, RV17 and 14. And then one more time with that RV14. This time I'm just staying right in the center where we filled in the white area. All right, so now I'm going to go ahead and use an orange shade. We're going to color the little fish down here. So I'm going to be using YR07, YR04, and Y17. So starting with the YR07. Oh no, we have to add our shadows. Starting with the N3. We're just going to go right along the bottom of the little fish. And a little bit underneath that fin. Now with the YR07. So we're going to go directly over those shadows with the YR07. I'm also going to add a little bit of YR07 up here. Since it's towards the top though, it won't have that much of a shadow, so that's why we didn't add the N3 up there. So now with YR04, we're just going to drag out some of the YR07 just a little higher, about halfway up. This fin will be fully colored. And then with the Y17, we're going to go ahead and fill in the rest. So since this is a different color family, these colors actually blend really well together, but if you do end up getting that perimeter, and since the fish is so small, we don't really need to do another coat unless you're really light-handed. But I'm just going to go back with my YR04, my middle color, and just do like a heavy flick going into some of that going into some of that Y17. And it helps just pull that color up. And then we got to repeat the Y17. Just give it another coat. Make sure there's a nice transition between the two shades. All right. Okay, so here are all of the images all cut out. I used the same rule with the N3 down below for all of the coral, which I will link down below. Now it's time to start putting our card together. So before we adhere this to the back of where we have the Tim Holtz alcohol inks for the ocean, we want to kind of get an idea of exactly where we're putting what. So I'm just going to kind of eyeball it because we want to attach the coral to the back of this piece of cardstock. So that way when we put the foam tape on it, it's going to stand up, but it's going to have a little bit more of a 3D effect. So we can go ahead and kind of figure out how we want to do this. And we can always go and add, if we're going to cut any out, and then add them on this outside. So I'll probably end up doing some of that too. So I think I'm going to trim off right after the yellow piece for this one. Okay, so I went ahead and trimmed that little bit off. I'm gonna be cutting it right along the edge of the cardstock, but I'm not sure if I wanted to cut out any of these, so I wanted to make sure I cut it out right, so that way if I wanted to add like that blue one on the outside or the blue and the pink one, and then I'm just gonna, you know, cut it off at certain spots so that way it doesn't look like it's a different piece. So let's go ahead and see where this one, I think I'm just gonna do the orange up here. And I want the pink to show. So what I think I'll do is trim off right off of this yellow one, and then I'm either gonna stick these two right down here or right up here. But let's go ahead and cut that off so that way we can start placing the little fish and the shark where we want them. Okay, so here's what I have left. I'm gonna go ahead and cut off this little blue one and cut around the rock, and then I'm gonna just make this a little bit smaller just so it doesn't look like it's that I cut it off. And then I think I'm gonna place it right up here next to the large semi-half circle. Okay, so I've placed all of my images exactly where I want them. So now I know where to glue down the coral. I'm gonna trim off the edges and get this glued down with some foam tape and get all my images stuck on my card. Okay, so here is the coral right in front of the ocean on our card. I have used a thin foam tape in order to adhere it to the other piece of the card front, and now I'm going to place all my little sea creatures on my card. Alright, so here is the card all put together for the card front, and now since we have some dimension here, and I did put like this little octopus, and right here there is quite a bit of dimension on the card fully, so I'm not going to use foam tape to attach it to the card, so the card base, so I'm just going to go ahead and glue that flat just like that. Alright, so here is my finished card. I went ahead and added some stickles to the coral just to give it a little extra sparkle and a little bit onto the rocks and the sand. This card was so much fun to make. I really enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed watching the video. Have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.